A slave who cannot rise up for his own freedom does not deserve to be liberated. From now on, we must rely on our own strength and intelligence. In West Africa, there's a country called Burkina Faso. For years, it faced a serious problem, not a conflict with guns or armies, but a battle against hunger. The country's leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, saw this crisis and chose to confront it with a fresh approach. He believed Burkina Faso's greatest challenge wasn't its military, it was its land. The soil was fertile, but water was scarce. Rainfall was unreliable, and without water, farming is impossible. When a nation can't grow its own food, it must turn to others for help buying supplies or requesting aid. That dependence strips away real freedom when another country feeds you. It can also dictate your choices. Captain Traore understood this well. He declared that a nation unable to feed itself is like a dog on a leash. Legal independence means little when you're starving and relying on others to survive. True control begins with self-reliance, so he decided to change course. He saw that water, not weapons, was the most powerful tool Burkina Faso had. With control over water, the nation could grow its own food, and by producing its own food, it could reclaim its future in independence. This thinking marked a sharp departure from past leadership. For years, leaders in Burkina Faso and across Africa followed the advice of powerful Western nations and global organizations. They took on massive loans, hired foreign companies, and launched costly projects. But many of these efforts failed to address the core issues. They were slow, expensive, and often ignored the needs of the most vulnerable. Captain Traore realized that true liberation wouldn't come from international conference halls. It would come from the soil of Burkina Faso. The answer was irrigation. Digging channels to bring water to dry land? Why start now? He acted because the situation was urgent. The Sahel region, where Burkina Faso is located, was facing worsening climate conditions. Droughts were becoming more frequent and severe. Each year, the threat of famine, a devastating food crisis, grew stronger. The old response was to seek help from abroad. But Traore wanted to end that cycle. He refused to let his people keep begging for food. Instead of reacting to crises, he chose to prepare for them. He knew that delaying action would only deepen the country's dependence and give more power to outsiders. This bold move surprised the world. Many were used to African leaders requesting aid. They weren't expecting one to stand up and say, "We'll handle it ourselves." By focusing on water, Captain Traore was doing more than launching an agricultural project. He was leading a movement for self-determination. It was a strategy to ensure that Burkina Faso would never again be forced to beg for basic needs. His mission was to dismantle a system where hunger was profitable for others. Why is water so critical? Because water is a great equalizer. It doesn't care how wealthy or poor your country is. It doesn't depend on your politics. If you can capture and channel it to your farmland, you can transform everything. A barren landscape can become a thriving farm. A struggling village can turn into a community with jobs and hope. But water won't move on its own. It needs direction, carefully built channels to guide it across the land. This is where the next chapter begins. Captain Traore didn't just aim to have water. He wanted to harness it, increase its impact, and use it as a powerful resource for his people. A place of hope, the bomber planes. The government launched a major initiative by restoring and upgrading the Gouladama, large structure designed to hold back river water and form a reservoir. With an abundance of stored water now available, a key decision had to be made. Where should this water be directed? Where should the first major irrigation canal be constructed? Captain Traore made a deliberate and thoughtful decision. He chose the Bomber Plains, a region that was both a blessing and a challenge. The land there was incredibly fertile and ideal for farming. However, it was also plagued by severe droughts. Water was nearly always scarce. Over the years, past governments had pledged to support Bomber, but those promises were never fulfilled. The area was neglected and came to represent forgotten dreams and unfulfilled potential. It symbolized what Burkina Faso could achieve if only it had access to sufficient water. So when the dam was ready and the reservoir full, Captain Traore directed the first flow of water toward Bomber. He didn't choose Bomber because it was simple. He chose it because it was difficult and significant. He wanted to send a clear message. If this dry, neglected land could become green and productive, it would prove that transformation was possible. It would show that even the most overlooked areas of the country could thrive with vision and commitment. This was about more than irrigation. It was a way to reignite national spirit. It was a bold act of determination. That's how the Bomber Canal came to life. It wasn't just an idea. It became a real project, etched into the land. The canal is massive. The goal is to make it the longest irrigation canal in Africa. It will span vast distances, delivering water to thousands of acres of farmland. The plan includes growing rice on 1,260 hectares, around 3,100 acres, and cultivating vegetables on another 70 hectares, 173 acres. And this is only the start. There's already a plan to expand by more than 200 hectares of additional farmland built by our own hands. What truly sets this canal project apart isn't just the water, it's how the canal is being constructed. Typically, for large-scale projects like this in Africa, the government might hire a foreign company from Europe, China, or the US. These companies would bring in their own engineers, equipment, and staff, and often take home a large profit. But Captain Traore chose a different path. He decided that the Bomber Canal would be built by the people of Burkina Faso. For the people of Burkina Faso, this was a groundbreaking approach. It meant the engineers, the laborers, the entire workforce were all local. The effort, the dedication, and the sweat behind this massive undertaking are entirely homegrown. The urgency is deeply local, and so is the pride. President Traore didn't just introduce the project and hope it would eventually happen. He set a firm deadline, 8 months. That's incredibly fast. Most foreign aid-backed projects take 5, 10, or even more years to complete. They often get caught up in red tape, endless meetings, and long delays. But Traore understood, hungry people can't wait. A nation striving for freedom can't afford delays to meet this ambitious goal. The project has been executed with military-like precision. It's a highly coordinated effort. Work begins before sunrise. Cement mixers run constantly. Workers continue late into the night under bright floodlights. Every phase is carefully managed to avoid setbacks. Any delay is treated as a national failure. This isn't just about construction. It's an urgent mission to build self-reliance. Consider what this means for the people, especially the farmers in the Bama region. This canal is more than just infrastructure. It's a symbol of hope and renewal. Many families had seen their parents and grandparents abandon the land when the rain stopped. Without enough to harvest, they were forced to move to cities for work. It was a painful reality. Now, the return of water is reversing that story. These families are coming back not for handouts, but to reclaim what has always been theirs. The water is returning, and with it, their sense of dignity. This canal is also state-of-the-art. It's far from a simple trench. It's a modern system powered by solar energy, using advanced pumps and smart valves that control water pressure. Soon, it will include digital sensors that ensure not a single drop is wasted. This is a big step forward compared to older irrigation systems, which were often inefficient and leaky. The Bama Canal is built to last, blending local knowledge with the latest technology. But it's not just the canal being constructed. New infrastructure is rising around its storage facilities for crops, newly paved roads to help farmers reach markets, and water distribution centers placed where they're genuinely needed, not just where politicians want to impress. Part of this system is designed to be locally owned and managed. Decisions won't be made from distant capitals or foreign embassies. They'll be made by the people of Bama. Captain Traore's vision doesn't stop there. The Bama Canal is just the beginning. Trial run. Early results suggest it will succeed. And if it does, it can be replicated across Burkina Faso in the north, the east, and anywhere water is needed. It's a working model, a proof of concept that shows this isn't a one-time success. It's a strategy that could make the entire country greener and more self-reliant. However, water alone isn't enough. This system also needs farmers to cultivate the land, traders to sell the crops, and entrepreneurs to grow new businesses. They are essential to keep this transformation alive, which brings us to the next part of the story: how this single canal is reshaping the nation's economy and creating jobs for everyone. From scarcity to strength, a new economy is being born. When water flows through the Bama Canal, it does more than irrigate fields. It sparks a revolution. It's not one of steel and concrete, but of nutrition, control, and confidence. This is where Burkina Faso's transformation becomes truly remarkable. It shifts from infrastructure to fighting hunger. President Traore always knew the goal wasn't just about moving water. The real aim was to grow something alongside it, something that could free his country from years of dependence. For too long, Burkina Faso relied on food aid or global imports. This left it vulnerable. A flood in India, a conflict in Europe, or an export ban in Asia could leave its people hungry. Food prices could spike overnight. In extreme cases, foreign nations could use food as a weapon of influence. Some tried to pressure Burkina Faso's government by threatening to cut off food supplies if their demands weren't met. Though the fields in Burkina Faso were naturally fertile, they had been left uncultivated, leaving the nation dependent and vulnerable. But thanks to the Bama Canal, those lands are being revived. With thriving fields, Burkina Faso is regaining its strength. The government estimates that the canal could help produce an additional 50,000 tons of food each year, an impressive figure for a country that once depended heavily on imported rice, wheat, and vegetables, just to meet basic needs. These projections aren't just optimistic assumptions. They're grounded in solid research on soil quality, crop types, and expected yields. Yet, the most significant transformation isn't merely about tonnage, it's about reclaiming autonomy. Food sovereignty allows a country to control what its citizens eat, how it's grown, when it's available, and what it costs. It means no longer being at the mercy of multinational food corporations. It also means avoiding crises when global supply chains are disrupted and saying no to overpriced emergency food aid that arrives too late. With sovereignty, a nation can establish its own food prices, grow culturally relevant crops, and reject aid tied to restrictive conditions. This quiet transformation has sparked a powerful shift within Burkina Faso's government. Farming is no longer viewed as a rural subsistence activity. It's now seen as a pillar of national strength. Ministries once focused solely on defense are now looking into planting schedules. Economists who previously prioritized GDP are recognizing the wealth potential in food exports. Agriculture is evolving from mere survival to a tool of self-determination. This approach is also redistributing power within the country. Previously, farmers could only hope for sufficient rainfall. Now, with consistent water from the canal, they can plan their seasons, grow second crops, and rotate crops to maintain soil health. They're collaborating with local seed banks to diversify their harvests. Farmer cooperatives are gaining traction, and women-led farming groups once relegated to infertile land now access rich, well-watered plots. This access is already shifting gender roles and boosting women's financial independence. Local markets are transforming too. With fresh produce available year-round, food prices are beginning to drop, easing the burden of food inflation. Every locally grown kilogram of rice reduces reliance on foreign sources. As food costs stabilize, families find themselves with extra income money. They can now invest in education, healthcare, or small businesses. This creates a ripple effect that reaches far beyond the farm. What's even more remarkable is President Traore's initiative to integrate technology into this agricultural revival. The fields around the Bama Canal are now testbeds for cutting-edge innovations. Artificial intelligence helps manage irrigation, sensors monitor soil quality, and drones assess crop health. These high-tech tools, once limited to industrial farms in wealthy nations, are now enhancing rural farming in Burkina Faso. Every sensor reading and calibrated water release boosts productivity, and with each improvement, dependence on outside sources declines. But here's where the change becomes truly strategic. As Burkina Faso grows more of its own food, it reshapes its global standing. A self-sufficient nation has bargaining power. A country that feeds itself cannot be coerced by threats of grain embargoes. It can engage in international negotiations on equal footing. And now, as Burkina Faso moves toward food security, it begins to redefine its role in the world, selling food to neighboring countries, especially when those neighbors are facing their own shortages due to drought turns not just money, but respect and influence. This is known as soft power. It's a kind of strength that can't be bought with cash or won through military force. It's not about charity's smart strategy. It's about using basic goods like onions and rice as tools of diplomacy instead of relying on tanks or treaties. Canal may have begun as a simple trench in the ground near Bama, but what now flows through it brings political leverage, economic stability, and a real shot at independence. It's a quiet revolution, one of pride and people. Even with the progress in agriculture and political autonomy, a deeper transformation is taking place. This change isn't reflected in the tons of crops harvested or in economic statistics. You can see it in the expressions of the people. They now wake up, not with anxiety or fear, but with purpose. They head to job sites, learn trades, and work toward a future. Because the next phase of this powerful story isn't just about foodites, about the people shaping a new nation with their own hands. The canal is helping rebuild the economy from the ground up. Growing enough to eat fills the belly. But restoring dignity that nourishes the soul? As Burkina Faso begins to feed itself using its new irrigation systems. Another quieter revolution is taking place, the rise of a homegrown workforce. The land is coming back to life, but so is the national spirit revived after being sidelined for far too long. At the heart of this transformation is a clear and powerful idea. Emphasized by President Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso will be built by Burkina, not by foreign consultants, not by engineers from overseas, not through deals signed in distant, luxurious hotels. The very people who were once only seen as recipients of aid are now stepping into new roles. They are the builders, the drivers, the owners of their future. You can see this clearly at the Bama Canal site. Around the hum of machines, the scaffolding, and the wet cement of the construction zones, there's a strong sense of movement. Visitors from other countries might be struck by the scale of the project, but they might overlook what truly matters, the deep involvement of local people. This one canal has already created more than 2,000 direct jobs. And each of those jobs is more than just a paycheck. It means stability for a family. It's a skill earned, someone regaining control over their life. From the welders shaping the metal gates that regulate water, to the civil engineers designing the canal's slope, from the masons stacking stones for the banks, to the technicians fitting solar-powered pumps, every task is being carried out by the hands of Burkina Faso. This isn't just a construction site. It's a school. It's a training ground. It's where a new national workforce is being developed and equipped. And this outcome wasn't guaranteed. In fact, it's quite rare when it comes to major infrastructure projects in Africa especially, those involving dams or canals. Typically, the process is outsourced. Governments often hire large foreign firms to handle the entire project or partner with international aid organizations. In such cases, locals are usually only brought in for the basic low-wage labor. Essential knowledge, the engineering, skills, and the profits often return to the foreign companies involved. President Traore firmly rejected this standard approach. He tore up the old manual. Instead, his administration focused on building a local supply chain right from the start. That means materials like cement and steel are being sourced from regional suppliers. Equipment and tools are being produced or maintained inside the country. Even the transport and logistics areas, usually dominated by multinational firms, are being handled by companies based in Burkina Faso. This approach ensures that the money spent on the canal stays within the nation. It recirculates through the local economy, supporting steel shops, cement plants, and transport businesses. It uplifts small farming groups and strengthens local banks. So while this is a canal project, it also functions like the bloodstream of a nation moving jobs, income, and energy across the country. Beyond the economic statistics lies something harder to measure, but far more powerful: pride. Speak to a 23-year-old welder working on the Bama site, and he won't cite economic indicators or technical blueprints. He'll talk about his own life. He might describe how he once had to travel to the capital, hoping for short-term labor. He might recall how droughts left his family with nothing.
Oh.
He earns enough to support relatives back in his village. This is more than a paycheck. It's a chance to restore faith in his country. He is, in a very real way, becoming a builder of the nation. For many involved in this effort, it's the first time they've seen the government spend money in a way that directly benefits them. It's the first time a major project has been done without unnecessary middlemen, delays, or the mismanagement of funds by corrupt officials. That matters deeply. When a government keeps its promises, when it offers wages instead of handouts, it earns something far more meaningful than public approval. It earns the trust of its people. But this trust isn't given blindly. It's earned through action, and President Traore understands that. That's why the 8-month deadline to finish the canal wasn't just political messaging. It was a clear signal of confidence in the capability, discipline, determination of Burkina Faso's workforce. So far, they're proving him right. Even the training process is evolving. New vocational centers have opened near the construction site, offering short programs focused on current needs: how to maintain a canal, operate solar-powered irrigation systems, understand water flow, and manage agricultural businesses. These aren't just short-term jobs. They're launching paths for long-term careers. They're transforming a generation of unemployed youth into skilled workers and agricultural entrepreneurs. As more of these opportunities emerge, another trend is reversing. For years, young people have been leaving rural communities for crowded cities or risking dangerous journeys across borders in search of a future. Now they're staying, and they're not staying because they're stuck. They're staying because they see potential, real opportunity, growing right where they are. They're not bystanders in this change. They're active participants, building a new future with their own hands. This is the real transformation: a people empowered, a land revitalized, and a nation finally standing strong on its own.